It's Regis from the road again. That's right, still on the laptop, so forgive the camera quality and mic quality, but the review train doesn't stop, and we have 2 new cards to talk about today.
Hey buddy, watch this.
You heard that right. Already 2 new cards? Blizzard's actually killing it with this card reveal schedule. So far, I got a new Hunter Legendary Oblivitron and the new Priest Scheme. So if you don't have a ton of time, you just want to see my star ratings, jump to the quick reviews in the description below. Otherwise, let's jump into the detailed reviews. Wait just a minute before we go on. I just want to issue a warning. Something went wrong with the webcam or my software while recording these 2 detailed card reviews. I guess also maybe the quick reviews. So my face is going to be frozen in a particularly hilarious position, but I'm sure as heck not going to re-record all this footage. So enjoy stupid face Regis for the next 10 minutes or so. Up first here we have Oblivitron for Hunter, a 6-mana 3/4 mech. With a Death Rattle, summon a mech from your hand and trigger its Death Rattle. So a big pile of Death Rattle synergies here, and we saw Death Rattle Hunter in the past find a lot of success. It is losing most of its core cards like Play Dead or Katharina Winterwisp. So perhaps Oblivitron creates an opportunity here to take mechs and Death Rattles and fuse them into something new. I think that's a promising idea. Is it going to work? We'll see. But there are really 2 ways to consider Oblivitron here, right? First off, you can think of it as sort of a 6-mana play where you just slam down the 3/4. And how does that work? And then alternatively, you can think, what if I activate Oblivitron immediately and try to create some sort of combo or chain of events that creates a really powerful swing on board? So in the first case, if you just play your Oblivitron down and you don't activate it immediately, I think you're looking at a pretty mediocre card. It feels a bit like a weak Cairn Bloodhoof, for instance. You get a weak stat line for 6 mana. 3/4 is worse than the 4/5 of Cairn, for instance. And when your Oblivitron dies via natural causes, you pull another minion from your hand. And you do activate that minion's Death Rattle, so depending on the quality of the Death Rattle, you might get a decent-sized board. For instance, Mechanical Whelp, you'd get the 2/2 with its Death Rattle still intact, and you'd get a 7/7. So that would be some upside over something like Cairn, right? You'd have a stickier, bigger board, so that's nice. A little downside initially, a little upside late, so that probably compares a little favorably, which is cool. But keep in mind, you do actually lose a resource in that case. It's pulling the card from your hand. It's not baked into the minion itself, so it could be a bit of a resource problem if you're constantly pulling stuff from your hand. Now, that requires Mechanical Whelp exactly to be good, right? There are weaker Death Rattle mechs out there, like a Weaponized Pinata. Probably wouldn't feel quite as good because you'd be sacrificing a lot of stats on board. You'd get that cool extra resource from the Pinata. Maybe that's good. It makes up for the resource of losing something from your hand, but ultimately still a low tempo sort of play. So I think the deck requires you to have certain things in hand to work well, which perhaps is a limit on its consistency or reliability. So I think that's challenging, and even when it works, I don't think the upside's as high as something like Katharina Winterwisp, which just always works. It works immediately, and it summons you a King Crush, right? A giant 8/8 with charge. Like, that's going to feel way better than something like Oblivitron. And then your Oblivitron, by the way, can summon a mech that doesn't have a Death Rattle, so sometimes just something like a Ziliax might be okay, but keep in mind that if you are running a full mech package and you are running like Ziliax or other magnetic supporting mechs, your Oblivitron has a good chance to pull those from your hand, so you might not get the Mechanical Whelp in hand. Again, I think limiting the consistency or reliability of this card, another challenge. Now, considering this in the other alternative fashion, as sort of a combo piece for instance, Mechathune, that's a cool idea. I think your Oblivitron might be able to set up a neat Mechathune. I'm not sure exactly how that would work, because your Mechathune's Death Rattle would trigger, but your Mechathune would still be alive. So I don't know if that means it wouldn't go off or not. That's an answer for the Hearthstone scientists out there. I'm worried it wouldn't actually work. But regardless, you can also look at this card, you know, with the Fireworks tech and activating it immediately to give you a little bit of extra oomph out of it and sort of double its impact. I mean, yeah, that makes it a little better, but I still worry about just building the deck to support that. It seems like it requires a lot of support and a lot of extra pieces, and then the upside still just doesn't feel that great to me. So, although I do see some promise, like there are attributes to this card which add up and they seem like they do cool things, it just feels like a worse version of Katharina, or in some ways a similar version to like Coffin Crasher, which isn't all that great of a card. I mean, it's better in some ways, worse in others. So to me, I just don't see all that upside. It doesn't feel that special or that unique or like it's really going to create this mech deck. So I haven't totally lost hope for a card like this. It's probably not going to be good anytime soon. Maybe one day it does find that deck, though, that makes it look halfway decent as long as mechs exist. So not great by any means. Probably not even good. Maybe just okay. So that was a lot on one card. We'll try to keep this one shorter with Lazul's Scheme, a new priest spell. It's 0 mana. Of course, another scheme where it's upgrading each turn. In this case, you reduce the attack of an enemy minion by 1 until your next turn, so a temporary discount. And that 1 increases, so you can reduce their attack by 2, by 4, by 8, etc. Which means basically if you hold on to Lazul's Scheme long enough, you can reduce the attack of almost any minion in Hearthstone to 0. Or perhaps even more importantly, sometimes 2 attack or less, so that you can combo it with maybe a Cabal Shadow Priest and steal whatever minion your opponent has. If you do move it down to 0, you can flip it with a Topsy-Turvy and instantly kill any minion with the 2-card combo. So Lazul's Scheme creates those sneaky opportunities to insta-kill anything with 2 cards or to steal something. But as is the case with other schemes, it's going to have to sit in your hand for a while to do that. It just doesn't come out perfect every time. You got to sit on it. So it's a really bad top deck and an awkward thing to draw. And although I don't think that's going to be a huge issue for every scheme, for this one that's more reactionary and you need it in a pinch and you need it in specific moments, I think it's going to be a detriment to Lazul's Scheme. Like, if you need 4 and it's only 3, that's just not good enough. With Togwaggle's Scheme, perhaps shuffling 3 minions is totally fine instead of 4. It may not impact much, but Lazul's Scheme is going to have some real breakpoints where it's good or terrible, and that's going to be important. So I think getting the upgrades to hit at the right time are going to be the real challenge for this card. And even then, when it does work and those combos exist, there's still like 2-card combos that probably don't feel all that amazing most of the time. They have to kind of line up perfectly to feel great, and even then it's like you use 2 cards to accomplish something that could often happen with just 1 card. So I wonder if there's enough depth or value bundled into Lazul's Scheme to really make it make sense. Beyond that, the effect is temporary. So if you're not using it for some sort of really good denial or swing potential or whatever that Cabal Shadow Priest play is, then it's just not going to impact the game all that much. It might save you a little bit of health from time to time. You turn your opponent's Lich King into a 0 attack minion and you save 8 health. Like, it could be a heal in a pinch, sure, but I just don't think there's enough bundled into that to really make it worth it. So I think this card's going to come up short. I think it'll be totally fine to get off of random generation effects, and it'll make big plays, and it'll feel good sometimes. But as far as actually running this in a constructed deck, I have a feeling Priest will find better options and things that will set up bigger plays than Lazul's Scheme ever could. So to me, I just don't see this card working right now. So there you go, folks. That wraps it up for the detailed reviews. Now let's jump into the quick reviews. Oblivitron is a 3-star card. Lazul's Scheme is a 2-star card. And there you go, folks. That wraps it up for part 3 of the Rise of Shadows review. As always, I want to hear what you guys have to say about these 2 cards. I found these particularly difficult to judge. Pretty easy to talk about. Probably talked a little too much about them because there's a lot of different components to analyze. But as far as gauging their strength, I think that's really tough. Like, star ratings on these 2 in particular felt tough to assign. I'm curious what stars you'd land on here. Share those thoughts in the comments below. But until then, thank you so much for watching. And until next time, game on.